Baroness, for that reply, but given that no discussions took place with the sanctioned parliamentarians either before the visit or since, I wonder if the noble Baroness could give us greater clarity on what was agreed and what was not. Thus far, it remains unclear whether sanctions on the families of Baroness Kennedy of the Shores and myself have actually been lifted. No mention has been made of the sanctions, perhaps more importantly, on Sir Geoffrey Nice, KC, on Dr. Joe Smith-Finlay, on Essex Court Chambers, on the Conservative Party Human Rights Group, and one of the parliamentarians who is no longer a member of the House of Commons, that is Tim Lawton. Now, neither Lady Kennedy nor I sought or wanted any kind of preferential treatment. What we wanted was justice for those who have suffered at the hands of the CCP, whether it's the hundreds of pro-democracy advocates who are incarcerated, along with Jimmy Lai, in prisons in Hong Kong, or those who have suffered as a result of genocide in Xinjiang. In 2021, I moved an amendment to the trade bill to outlaw free trade agreements with countries perpetrating genocide. And the noble Baroness will recall that we had in mind China and the appalling treatment of the Uyghurs. The Prime Minister himself voted for the amendment 3 times. On this visit, the Prime Minister said that the previous government had pursued an ice age in relations with China. Yet those amendments were right then. Why are they wrong now? Was the House of Commons wrong to vote for a declaration of genocide in Xinjiang against the Uyghurs? And can the noble Baroness please assure us that the UK sanctions against the 4 Chinese Communist Party officials responsible for genocide in Xinjiang remain in place, and that no new state visit will take place by Xi Jinping until the genocide ends?
My Lords, I'm grateful to the noble Lord, and I admire hugely the consistency with which he raises these issues. He's absolutely right to say that although there is clearly some progress as regard the measures put in place that have affected our parliamentarians, and as he says, former parliamentarians like Tim Lawton, that obviously should be lifted immediately. And we are continuing conversations to get absolute clarity on which measures, which people, to make sure that that is complete, and we will continue to do that. You know, the things that we vote for in opposition, when you're in opposition, you only have certain things that you can do to highlight these issues. When you have a government that took the position that it did, where the approach that this government is taking, which is far more based upon engagement and dialogue and attempting to rebuild a relationship in order to get progress that everybody here would like to see, we have more options at our disposal now. So we are attempting to approach these important matters in a different way. And as he knows on sanctions, I can't comment, but I do note what he says about sanctions.
That the noble lady the Minister faces is that although I trust her both expressly and implicitly, she is tied by the problems of being a government minister. I'm now in opposition, so I've got a greater freedom to speak and to complain. But I do complain because the responses that we get from the government are little more than vague generalizations, and that breeds suspicion. It breeds suspicion that nothing very much is being done, and that the dialogue between the government and China is no more than formulaic. Could she please do her best to assure us, and of course I don't know, she may well know what the Prime Minister is about to say or has already said in the other place, but could she please reassure us that the fate of Jimmy Lai is not just a box to be ticked, nothing more to be said, that our relations with China are not just a diplomatic box to be ticked, nothing more to be said, but genuinely positive, concrete discussions with force behind them are being conducted by her department and the government as a whole.
I do appreciate the way in which the noble Lord put that question, although I can assure him I don't find this in any way awkward. I think it's important that I'm here and I am fully accountable to this House above all others. The Prime Minister, I believe, is on his feet right now. So the Noble Lord won't have very much longer to wait and see what he has to say. And I expect that, although I don't know, the statement may well be repeated in this House in the usual way. So there will be further opportunities to make these points. But I would like to assure him that there is no sense in which certainly the fate of Jimmy Lai is in any way a tick box exercise for this government. We're clear, we're consistent, and we have been for some time that Jimmy Lai should be released, and he should be released with immediate effect.
My Lords, I declare an interest as a new member of the Joint Committee on Human Rights, chaired so ably and fearlessly by the Noble Lord Alton. I wonder if my noble friend the Minister could say something in the light of comments in the earlier question about Mr Lai, what she can tell us about his condition, given his age and the length of his solitary confinement, and whether His Majesty's government is satisfied with the consular access and support that he's been given.
The short answer to that is no, we're not satisfied, and we haven't been able to get the consular access that we would like and that Mr Lai needs, and we are concerned about the medical access to medical care that he needs, and we will continue to raise the, not just for him to be released, which he ought to be released immediately, but short of that, he does need access to consular support and to medical attention.
My Lords, with respect to the Minister, when we all voted on a number of occasions for trade agreements to have human rights clauses, we did so because we wanted that to be the law applying to all governments. And it is with great sadness to hear the Minister say that the Labour Party took that position then simply to make a point rather than think that that's how our trade agreements should be framed. So can the Minister confirm that when it comes to when the government announced that there's to be a feasibility study on a free trade agreement on services with China, that feasibility study will take into account human rights? Because if it doesn't, then a Labour government putting in a trade agreement with where MI5 and our security services has indicated that there's an ongoing national security risk will be opening up an area of deep regret. And secondly, the agreement also indicated that education and skills will be opened up for China. And we equally know that MI5 has warned all of us that that is the source of a major part of foreign influence from China. So why is the government refusing to put China on the foreign influence registration scheme as it should be?
Well, obviously, national security is the principal concern of everything we do. But the Noble Lord mentioned trade, and I'm pleased to be able to confirm that export deals of £2.2 billion were secured. AstraZeneca committed to £15 billion investment, which will underpin approximately 10,000 UK jobs. China agreed to cut tariffs on Scotch whisky from 10% to 5% in a deal worth £250 million to the UK. Removal of market access barriers, unlocking around £2.3 billion for UK economy, were secured, and a financial services package, including the first UK-China financial regulators working group. And we committed to a feasibility study for a binding UK-China services agreement. So this the conversations that we're having, the engagement, is absolutely in the interests of the United Kingdom and its people. But as he would want us to do, of course, our national security underpins everything.
Lords, the latter part of Lord Alton's question refers to national security, and given the now acknowledged interest by China in Mauritius and the desire by China to have closer engagement with Mauritius, how concerned is the government that Mauritius does not have the military capability to police the seascape surrounding the Chagos archipelago to detect and disrupt malign activity?
Never long till we get to Chagos in these exchanges, but we are confident that the deal that we have agreed with Mauritius is in the very best interest of the United Kingdom and our security, and we will continue to have conversations with the relevant partners and allies in order to bring what is the only deal possible in order to secure the base on Diego Garcia and to give that the legal certainty it needs so that we can continue with the base jointly with the United States, which does so much to keep our citizens safe.
Crossbench. In conducting international negotiations, it's always worth reflecting on the probable strategic objective of the other side. In the case of China, I doubt very much it's about increasing trade with the United Kingdom. It's much more likely to be about dividing those who are trying to contest China's attempts to make the world safe for autocracy. Has the government been keeping this in the forefront of its mind in its recent negotiations?
Well, of course, we keep a whole range of factors in mind. These are complex situations and negotiations, and we do not underestimate that. But I think it would be very wrong for us to deny ourselves the opportunity to have these conversations, because you don't get a chance to secure the trade that I have mentioned, or the discussions on security, or human rights, or any of the other issues that we need to discuss with the second largest economy on the planet if you don't engage.
We'll hear from the Primary Minister next, then we'll hear from the Noble Lord.
The Minister will have noticed in the earlier question that it ran out of supplementaries, and that to this question the House is fairly sotto voce. Will she accept that that does not reflect an unwillingness to engage with this issue, but rather an acceptance that, right, some time has now been allowed for China to take some initiatives themselves, but unless they do, and give reasonable fair play to these people who have suffered so much, the House undoubtedly will want to return to this issue.
I'm in no doubt whatsoever of the level of concern and interest that this House has in the issues that we are discussing. And sometimes that means that issues run out of time. Sometimes people don't want to ask questions. I don't read anything at all into that. I understand how important these issues are, and I'm very, very happy to come whenever the House would like me to discuss them.
Notice the comments the other day by Mr. Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, about the role of the middle powers in this digital age of connectivity, which he argued could, if we work together, be much more effective than it is now. And the role of the superpowers of the past is much less, and they don't hold all the cards, as Mr. Trump and Mr. Xi sometimes think they do. Is it not time to think on those lines, and when we rebuild the international institutions which we've started in 1945 and now more or less run down to nothing, when we rebuild those, as we must, could she urge her ministerial colleagues to keep that aspect in mind, that in this new age the middle powers do have much more influence and should take a much stronger line than we usually do?
The Noble Lord raises a fascinating question of the changing world order and geopolitics and geoeconomics. I think he makes a very strong point about, as Mr. Carney did when he visited China very recently, about the importance of us engaging fully and extensively with middle powers, and that is an approach that this government agrees with, and I think that he will see the fruits of that as this Parliament continues. But I do think it's a really important thing to consider.
My Lords, does the government believe the Chinese government's assertion that it no longer operates overseas police stations in the United Kingdom? Was this discussed on the visit, and what does she think the new supersized Chinese embassy will do to that threat?
Well, I would encourage my noble friend to consider the comments that I'm sure my friend the Prime Minister is making at the other end of this building as to the contents of his discussions that he had in China. It's for him to speak first on those, obviously. But we are very alive to the risks, and particularly to the threats placed and the harassment of people in this country. It's unacceptable, and we won't stand for it, and we do raise it at every opportunity.
My Lords, motion to agree the report of the Conduct Committee, the conduct of the Earl of Shrewsbury, The Earl of Devon on behalf of Lord Caker.
My Lords, if I may, before I move the motion and in light of the tributes to Lord McFall from the front benches, may I offer a brief thank you from the back benches for his tireless and devoted service to our House. My Lords, on behalf of my noble friend Lord Caker, who is unable to be present today, I beg to move the motion standing in his name on the order paper. The report before the House on the conduct of the Earl of Shrewsbury follows allegations in the Guardian newspaper that the noble Earl, Lord Shrewsbury, had made improper claims to travel expenses. In brief, the Commissioner for Standards found that the noble Earl had used a Rover ticket, purchased with the House of Lords credit card, to travel from London to Stafford and back for a business meeting, and that he had made mileage claims in respect of 4 journeys that were in reality never made. The Commissioner dismissed further unrelated allegations relating to the declarations of interests and provision of paid parliamentary services. The noble Earl did not appeal against either the Commissioner's findings or his recommended sanction, which was that the noble Earl